Stand before any grand Victorian mansion or elaborate Gilded Age estate, and you'll find yourself captivated by something intangible yet undeniable. These architectural marvels possess a magnetic quality that modern homes simply cannot replicate. Every ornate detail, from the delicate gingerbread trim to the towering turrets, speaks of an era when buildings were crafted with passion and purpose. In contrast, today's neighborhoods are filled with structures that, while functional, often feel sterile and soulless. This stark difference raises a compelling question that has puzzled architecture enthusiasts for decades. What happened to the artistry in home building? The answer lies in understanding how dramatic shifts in economics, technology, culture, and craftsmanship fundamentally transformed the way we approach residential construction. The Golden Age of Residential Architecture. Victorian and Gilded Age masterpieces. The period spanning roughly from 1860 to 1910 represents the pinnacle of American residential architecture. During this remarkable era, homes served as far more than mere shelter. They functioned as elaborate canvases for artistic expression and symbols of their owners' aspirations and achievements. Victorian-era residences drew inspiration from diverse architectural movements, each contributing unique characteristics to the residential landscape. The Gothic Revival movement brought soaring pointed arches and elaborate stonework typically reserved for cathedrals into domestic settings. Queen Anne's style introduced whimsical asymmetry, wraparound porches, and the iconic painted ladies we still admire today. The Second Empire style, borrowed from French architecture, added those distinctive mansard roofs and dormer windows that created such dramatic silhouettes against the skyline. These weren't cookie-cutter designs pulled from a catalog. Each home told its own story through carefully chosen details: hand-carved wooden brackets beneath the eaves, stained glass windows that painted rainbow patterns across interior walls, and elaborate millwork that required months of patient craftsmanship to complete. Bay windows jutted out at unexpected angles, creating cozy reading nooks and allowing maximum natural light to flood interior spaces. The Gilded Age pushed residential grandeur to even greater heights. Wealthy industrialists and railroad barons commissioned palatial estates that rivaled European castles in their opulence. These mansions featured imported Italian marble, hand-painted ceiling murals, and grand staircases that served as dramatic focal points for elaborate social gatherings. Every surface, from the intricately patterned parquet floors to the coffered ceilings high above, received meticulous attention from master craftsmen who took immense pride in their specialized skills. The economics of building excellence. How money shaped everything. Understanding why we stopped building homes like artistic masterpieces requires examining the dramatic economic transformation that occurred during the 20th century. In the Victorian era, the economics of construction operated on fundamentally different principles than today's market-driven approach. During the late 1800s, skilled labor represented a surprisingly affordable resource. Waves of European immigrants brought centuries-old craftsmanship traditions to American shores, creating a deep pool of talented artisans willing to work for modest wages. A master carpenter who could hand-carve elaborate newel posts or a stonemason capable of creating intricate Gothic arches could be employed for what would seem like remarkably reasonable compensation by today's standards. The materials themselves told a similar story of accessibility and abundance. Old-growth forests provided seemingly endless supplies of premium lumber with tight grain patterns and exceptional durability. Local quarries supplied high-quality stone that could be transported relatively inexpensively to nearby construction sites. Even exotic materials like mahogany or marble became increasingly available as improved transportation networks connected distant sources to growing American cities. The post-World War II suburban boom fundamentally altered this economic landscape. Returning veterans needed housing quickly and affordably, spurring the development of tract housing and mass production techniques. Developers discovered they could maximize profits by standardizing designs, bulk purchasing materials, and employing assembly line construction methods. William Levitt's famous Levitt towns became the template for efficient suburban development, where identical houses could be erected rapidly using interchangeable components and simplified construction techniques. Modern construction costs paint a stark picture of how economics now constrains architectural ambition. In 1890, decorative elements like hand-carved rosettes, elaborate brackets, and custom millwork typically added only 15 to 20% of a home's base construction cost. Today, recreating those same details could easily double or triple the price of a comparable modern home, as skilled decorative craftwork has become disproportionately expensive relative to basic construction. A master woodcarver who might spend a full day creating an ornate newel post now commands daily rates of $400 to $600, making a single decorative element cost more than many families' monthly car payments. Insurance companies, lenders, and building regulations further encourage standardization and discourage the kind of experimental craftsmanship that once defined residential architecture. Technology and materials revolution, from hand tools to mass production. The technological revolution in construction fundamentally changed not just how homes are built, but what kinds of homes are possible to build economically. This transformation touches every aspect of residential construction, from foundation to finish work. Traditional home building relied heavily on time-tested techniques passed down through generations of craftsmen. Timber framing involved carefully selecting and hand-shaping each wooden beam, creating joints so precise that structures could stand for centuries without nails. Plasterers mixed lime-based compounds on site, applying multiple coats by hand to create smooth, durable wall structures that actually improved with age. Window glass was often hand-blown, creating slight irregularities that added character and visual interest to each pane. Modern construction emphasizes speed and uniformity above all else. Power tools allow workers to cut lumber quickly, but often sacrifice the precision that hand tools provided. Drywall replaced traditional plaster because it could be installed rapidly by less skilled workers, though it lacks the durability and acoustic properties of properly applied plaster. Pre-manufactured components like vinyl windows and composite trim can be installed quickly, but often lack the substantial feel and longevity of their traditional counterparts. Building codes, while serving important safety functions, have also contributed to standardization. Modern regulations often specify exact materials and techniques, leaving little room for the creative problem-solving that characterized historical construction. Energy efficiency requirements, though environmentally important, sometimes conflict with traditional materials and methods that builders once used to create distinctive architectural features. The rise of synthetic materials has perhaps been the most visible change. Vinyl siding mimics wood clapboard but lacks its natural aging characteristics and repairability. Laminate flooring imitates hard wood but cannot be refinished like solid wood planks. Fiberglass columns replace hand-carved wooden supports but lack the subtle variations that made each original piece unique. The craftsman tradition and its decline. Lost arts and forgotten skills. The decline of traditional building craftsmanship represents one of the most significant losses in American residential construction. This wasn't simply about techniques disappearing. Entire cultural traditions of learning, creating, and taking pride in manual skill gradually faded from the construction industry. European guild systems had created formal apprenticeship programs that took years to complete. A young man might spend 7 years learning to become a master carpenter, starting with basic tasks like sharpening tools and gradually advancing to complex joinery and decorative carving. These craftsmen developed not just technical skills but aesthetic sensibilities, understanding how proportions, textures, and details work together to create harmonious architectural compositions. Immigration patterns during the late 19th century brought waves of skilled artisans from countries with centuries-old building traditions: German cabinet makers, Italian stonemasons, Irish plasterers, and Scandinavian woodcarvers all contributed their specialized knowledge to American residential architecture. These craftsmen often worked in tight-knit communities, sharing techniques and maintaining quality standards through peer pressure and professional pride. The Industrial Revolution and 2 world wars accelerated the decline of these traditional skills. Young men who might have once learned trades instead found opportunities in factories or offices. Construction became increasingly mechanized, reducing the need for highly skilled handwork. Trade schools, when they existed, focused on speed and efficiency rather than the patient mastery that characterized historical craftsmanship. Today, finding artisans capable of traditional techniques like hand-carved millwork or lime mortar masonry often requires extensive searching and premium pricing. Many of these skills survive primarily in restoration work, where specialists command high fees to repair and maintain historical buildings. The knowledge exists but remains concentrated among a small group of dedicated practitioners rather than being widely available as it once was. Environmental wisdom in historical construction. Sustainability, before it had a name. Historical builders working without modern heating and cooling systems developed remarkably sophisticated strategies for creating comfortable, energy-efficient homes using only natural materials and passive design principles. These time-tested approaches offer valuable lessons for contemporary sustainable construction. Thick masonry walls provided excellent thermal mass, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly during cooler evening hours. Strategic window placement maximized winter solar gain while minimizing unwanted summer heat. Deep roof overhangs and wraparound porches created shaded outdoor living spaces and protected wall surfaces from weather damage. High ceilings and transom windows facilitated natural ventilation, allowing warm air to rise and escape while drawing cooler air through lower openings. Traditional building materials demonstrated remarkable longevity when properly maintained. Old-growth lumber cut from slowly growing trees possessed tight grain patterns that resisted rot and insect damage far better than today's plantation-grown alternatives. Lime-based mortars actually gained strength over time and could be easily repointed when necessary. Natural slate and tile roofing systems often lasted over a century with minimal maintenance. The durability of historical construction represents a form of sustainability that modern building rarely matches. Many Victorian homes continue serving their original purpose after 150 years, while contemporary houses often require major renovations or replacement after just a few decades. This longevity reduces the environmental impact of construction by spreading resource consumption over much longer periods. Modern sustainable design movements increasingly look to historical precedents for inspiration, particularly strategies like strategic window placement, thermal mass, and natural ventilation. While contemporary approaches like passive house standards use sophisticated engineering and super-tight building envelopes rather than the intuitive, naturally vented methods of Victorian builders, both recognize the importance of working with natural forces rather than against them. In historic preservation work, there's renewed appreciation for traditional materials like lime mortar and solid wood construction, which often demonstrate superior durability and repairability compared to their modern substitutes. Modern revival efforts and their limitations. Preserving what remains. While traditional building skills haven't disappeared entirely, their primary application today focuses on historic preservation rather than new construction. Specialized craftsmen work to maintain and restore existing historic buildings, with apprenticeship programs teaching skills like lime mortar repair, traditional plastering, and timber framing primarily for restoration projects. A small number of custom builders do create new homes using traditional techniques, but these projects typically serve wealthy clients willing to pay significant premiums for authentic craftsmanship. Hand-carved details and period-appropriate materials command prices that place such work well beyond typical homeowner budgets. New urbanism movements have had more widespread influence, though primarily in neighborhood planning rather than building techniques. Developments like Seaside, Florida, and Kentlands, Maryland, demonstrate how contemporary communities can incorporate walkable street layouts and varied architectural styles inspired by traditional town design. Since Seaside's creation, hundreds of communities have adopted new urbanist principles, though most still rely on conventional construction methods. The main challenge remains economic feasibility. Insurance companies and building departments sometimes resist unfamiliar traditional materials and techniques, adding regulatory hurdles to already expensive projects. Most builders who want to incorporate historical character focus on hybrid approaches, using standard modern construction for structural elements while adding traditional style details where costs can be managed more effectively. However, anyone seriously attempting to recreate authentic period architecture quickly discovers a sobering reality. It's not just expensive, it's often literally impossible. Sourcing enough old-growth lumber for an entire house would require years of searching through reclaimed wood dealers, with no guarantee of finding matching materials or consistent quality. The specialized craftsmen capable of hand-carving authentic millwork or executing traditional joinery techniques simply don't exist in sufficient numbers. Even with unlimited budgets, the supply chains and skill sets needed for truly authentic construction have been permanently severed. This harsh reality explains why discerning buyers ultimately choose restoration over reproduction, paying premium prices for irreplaceable period homes that represent the last remnants of an irretrievable era of American craftsmanship. These efforts, while valuable, represent a small fraction of overall residential construction and remain largely inaccessible to average homeowners seeking the character and craftsmanship of historical architecture. The question of why we can't build homes like we used to reveals itself as a complex intersection of economic, technological, cultural, and practical factors. While we've gained enormously in terms of construction speed, safety standards, and energy efficiency, something essential has been lost in the transition to modern building practices. Perhaps the real opportunity lies not in trying to recreate the past exactly, but in learning from historical precedents while addressing contemporary needs. We might not return to an era when every home required years of hand craftsmanship, but we can certainly do better than the generic, disposable architecture that dominates today's housing market. The growing interest in traditional building techniques, sustainable construction methods, and neighborhood design principles suggests that many people recognize what's missing from modern residential architecture. By understanding why historical homes possess such enduring appeal, we can work toward creating contemporary buildings that capture some of that same magic while serving the practical needs of modern families. The story of American residential architecture isn't finished. With creativity, dedication, and a willingness to invest in quality over quantity, we can build homes that honor the past while embracing the future. The challenge is ensuring that this architectural renaissance extends beyond luxury custom homes to influence the broader housing market where most families live. After all, everyone deserves to live in a home that inspires them, not just shelters them. The techniques and principles exist. We simply need the collective will to apply them thoughtfully and creatively to contemporary residential design.